Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me, I have a returning good brother to the temple, coming to us from the wonderful world of Lion Wing, a man who's no stranger to the hallowed halls of this place, and the reasons why no one should be drinking from my stash. Previously here for Tokyo Conception, now back with Where's Blade, Magic and Machinery, which he has been lampshading that this would be happening and would be relevant to my interests for over a year. The one and only Bradley Halestorm. How you doing today, man?
Hey, man, I am good, Mildra, my friend. Thanks for having me back on again. I think this is like the 6th time I've been on the show. I love being a repeat guest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you keep asking me to come back on.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully I keep churning out good games so you keep asking me to come back on.
Yeah. Also, I look at it the same way I look at it with Alex T. Because I did get accused of blazing Alex T too much, and I'm like, I'll stop blazing him when he makes a shit game. So far he hasn't. I don't know. Maybe there's a Japanese translation of Ray Thulu that you could work on.
Maybe I'll just make I'll choose a bad game to localize, and that way we can skip the interview on that one, and then I'll come back with a real good one the next time around.
Yeah, but so, as I mentioned before, I have to give a bit of backstory for everybody, because I'd say about 15 months ago, you had told me that you were working on something that would be relevant to my interests as a quasi-historian. And then the Lion Wing showcase happened, and you had revealed that Where's Blade would be the first in the Legends of Japan series that you guys were working on, which was meant to accommodate his very famous historical games, as opposed to more recent affairs which you had been doing. I say recent, but I'm grading on a curve here. But then I saw that note, and as soon as I saw the Legends of Japan label and saw what Where's Blade was, I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch! This is what you were lampshading the whole time.
It's funny. So I dropped that hint to you, like a year and a half ago or thereabouts. That's something that I have done pretty much since I launched Lion Wing. Is I'm always looking for opportunities, be it in a stream that I'll have running on Twitch or YouTube, in an interview, in a blog post, in our Discord, wherever. I like to just drop subtle hints to see who picks up on what. Because I think it's fun when you have to listen with intention to when someone's talking, because you never know when there might be some kind of clue dropped randomly. I think that's just a fun thing to do. I like listening to folks that do that themselves. And when I started getting Lion Wing up and off the ground and it was starting to gather some steam, I thought, you know what, I want to do that. I want to drop some hints here and there and see if anyone even notices them. So yeah, it was very subtle to you that time. And then shortly thereafter we launched our Lion Wing showcase, and boom, there was Where's Blade. First book in our Legends of Japan series. We do have another installment number 2 in the Legends of Japan series coming out probably next year. We are working on it currently. So that product line continues full steam ahead. But of course, it all starts with Where's Blade. There could have, to me anyway, there could have been no better book to launch a retro-inspired product line for Japanese TTRPGs getting localized for the West than Where's Blade. So I'm glad that's what we're going to be talking about today. I don't know if I'm going to drop any more hints about what else we're working on, but you never know. Yeah.
You're just going to, folks, you're just going to have to pay attention. Lord knows I do, because, in this tabletop world, it's impossible for somebody to sneeze without me knowing about it. I'm not saying I'm in your walls, but I'm also not saying it. But I think what's important to establish, since I do remember getting on a lot of journalists and pundits cases about this, is is establishing an appendix N when it comes to what style of fantasy and what media might be analogous to the style of things that Where's Blade is going with. And I believe I've explained to you what Appendix N is in the past, haven't I?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, what sort of anime, manga, video games, so on and so forth, would you say would be an appropriate Appendix N for the world of Where's Blade?
So, Where's Blade is a bit of a genre mashup in some ways. I think one of my main marketing beats that I established early on, and actually you can see it in that Lion Wing Showcase reveal trailer for Where's Blade, is it takes Western style fantasy and mashes it together with mecha. So I think of it as a swords and sorcery and mecha type of game. When Where's Blade emerged on the scene, it was during the so-called like real robot boom. That had been kicked off by the success of Mobile Suit Gundam and was in full swing by the mid 80s. Mm-hmm. At the same time, the mid 80s, Western style fantasy was also becoming pretty popular with the general public in Japan, thanks to things like game books and growing number of D&D inspired video games and computer games, including a little known thing called Dragon Quest. So mashing the fantasy and mecha genres together made a certain amount of sense, I think, for the creators at Shindosha when they were coming up with this. And there's a cool story about how Where's Blade even came to be, which I'm sure we'll get into. But Shindosha wasn't they were far from the first company to like mash these genres together. Well before Where's Blade, there was Our Battler Dunbine, I think, in '83, which was this Western style fantasy with elegant looking mechs and biological components fighting it out in like a medieval style world.
And a lot of death because it is a Tomino project.
Absolutely, lots of it. And that was followed up by Panzer World Gallant as well, a show that Shindosha themselves promoted in their mecha-focused magazine Duel. So, it's a little bit of everything that was hot at the time in Japan, and of course, like I just mentioned, other creators were doing this. I just think Where's Blade does it with a certain amount of elegance and world building. Like, this is such a lore dense game. Oh, yeah. You can tell the creators, you can tell it's a product of its time, first off, just in its mechanics, and also in just how much unique thought went into the setting. Like, this is such a weird setting. I remember early on, I was trying to pitch this game to my team who didn't know about it other than the translators. But when I'm talking to the rest of the team, they're like, tell me what this is. And, I give them like the Cliff Notes version of it. And they're like, I'm having a hard time picturing this. And I feel like that was such a thing that Japan did at the time in the 80s and the 90s. We even saw it in video games. Just these really unique, but like perfectly executed, but also kind of weird mashups from various fiction. And Where's Blade it's one of those that I hold up there, and like it's a little hard to explain, but once you explain it and you get it, like it totally makes sense.
Yeah, and there have been a few games I've used as kind of parallels to help some of my students understand what it's doing. And I can go through a few of those, and you can tell me if these are close to the mark.
Sure.
One of them is Vanguard Bandits, as we knew it in the States, but in Japan it was Epica Stella.
Dude, yes. Okay, so in my little like rant right there before, I was gonna name drop Vanguard Bandits and another game called Elemental Gearbolt, which was a light gun shooter for the PS1. So yes, you are right on target with Vanguard Bandits.
Yeah, I'd also say not in a 1-to-1, but some aspects of the Panzer Dragoon universe.
Absolutely. Yeah. Blasted lands, post-apocalyptic in many ways. Weird merging of bio and science.
Yeah. I know a lot of people brought up Mobile Suit Gundam, but I'd say there's two series that I think would be closer to the mark. One of them is pretty obvious, and that's Vision of Escaflowne, though then you have to bring up the question of which version, because the anime, the manga, and the movie have 3 completely different vibes.
Totally.
And to a certain extent, and this is admittedly the biggest stretch, but 5-star stories.
Okay. Yeah.
And the big reason I say that is you have this mixture of very advanced tech with a kind of neo-feudalism. Um, and I also remember there was a attempt to try and bring Mazinger Z to the States way back in the day that treated the mecha as knights, and obviously that project didn't go anywhere, but that did crop up in the back of my head when I was studying what I'm dealing with Where's Blade. And bringing up swords and sorcery is a very informed choice, since just saying fantasy is a wide net. You know, this is something I've gotten on a lot of people about. That fantasy is not just the Tolkien melting pot. You have sword and sorcery, you have high, you have low, you have post-apocalyptic, everything in between. And if I'm being honest, because I did look at a very rough fan translation and tried to clean things up, as well as a Facebook group that was showcasing some elements. One of the things I got the vibe of, and this might sound a bit odd, but the interlock system in Cyberpunk and Mechton. Because now, correct me if I'm wrong. Even though Where's Blade has system hopped over the years, what's being localized here is the original.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, not the D20 2008 Hobby Japan published book. No, this is the one from '89.
Yeah, I do. And that one used primarily a D10. There is ways to roll more than one D10, but that's getting into the weeds. But there's also, as I understand it, an emphasis on skills and skill levels in a freeform approach. I.e.,
yes,
instead of having a class and leveling it up, you have a class, but it's more like a starting package with a set amount of XP to spend on skills beyond that.
Correct.
And that being the case, that's why I ended up thinking of interlock with, especially Cyberpunk, because within Cyberpunk you have the roles as starting packages, and each role has one unique skill. And that's kind of the vibe I got when I was looking through the classes here. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, it's not a comparison that I would have made myself, but when you lay it out like that, yeah, I think that's a fine framework to put Where's Blade into. Yeah, I don't think Cyberpunk was on my list of here's some comparables, but yeah, I think that works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I suppose I could also bring up the fact that look at the way classes work in, say, a Souls-like, where it's not really a class, it's a starting package.
Yes. Yep. That's a really good way of thinking about it, in fact.
And it's for that reason that I find that there's going to be a lot of potential directions to go, since as I understand it, you have each of the classes or occupations, which is what the translation I had used, falls onto one of four categories: warrior, wordcaster, clergy, and vocational. With some subtypes within that. And I think the way is warrior is a lot of your martial ones. Wordcaster and clergy have the mage ends, and vocational is the, for lack of a better term, skill monkey. Not just your thief, but also a lot of skilled labor.
Yeah, I mean, I can break it down a little bit more than that. In fact, I'd say so. So there are four like core quote classes. We do call them classes. In our version. We've got warriors, wordcasters. This is where we break from the fan translation. We don't have clergy, it's spiritualists. And then our last one is tradesfolk. So yeah, your warriors are going to represent your classic like fighter types, can do battle with a variety of weapons, but are also most likely to have skills to operate a Ryude. And Ryude that's the name of the mechs in this game.
Yep.
Wordcasters are mage equivalents, basically. Spiritualists are essentially priests and clerics, but with sort of like an Asian spin. They come in two types: monks who channel their bodily energies into powerful, like bare knuckle attacks, basically, and a variety of support ability. And then invokers who use invocation for everything from charming enemies to resurrecting the dead. Spiritualists are expected to kind of like stay true to their faith and can suffer some pretty serious in-game consequences if they stray. And then, lastly, with our tradesfolk, it's sort of a catch-all for any profession that doesn't fit into the other three classes. So things like bards, blacksmith, doctors, peddlers, thieves, whatever. In the book, it even outlines for tradesfolk, like these classes are recommended for players who want a more like role-play oriented experience. I love that, that out of the four classes, that's not a whole lot to work with, but I like that the designers dedicated at least one to like, hey, here's if you're more into the role play aspect, like this is probably what you want to do. Not to say you couldn't do any of the other ones, you totally could, but I like that it even calls that out in the text, which is great. What's also interesting is like, so character creation. It's sort of a combination of being like class based and a little free form. So like a character's, you started getting into this, so I just wanted to build off of it. A character's choice of class basically provides them with a basic package of skills and certain like quote class perks, and gives them a pool of points to spend on acquiring other skills, whatever. This allows basically, for multi-classing. So you can have like a wordcaster who also knows how to swing a sword, or a warrior who can use some magic. It's entirely possible. Alternatively, you can also, what we're doing is, the game is dense. It's pretty crunchy. So we're including some pre-generated character packages, just to like onboard folks quickly. In terms of like freedom, tradesfolk, I mentioned them before, and I wanted to circle back to them because tradesfolk characters have kind of like the greatest level of freedom as the player and the game master. The game master, by the way, in this game is called a wares maker. So if you hear me say a wares maker or a WM, just know that means GM. But basically, the player and the game master work together to decide what kind of starting equipment, skills, and class perks are going to be appropriate for that character. If somebody goes with like a tradesfolk. So yeah, it's. I actually really like your Souls like reference there, because I think that is a really great modern way of. It doesn't completely encapsulate what this is, but it's a quick and dirty way of saying this is kind of what you can expect from the classes and the onboarding for this game.
Yeah, the point is that you have the starting setup, but you're not. But the only thing that levels up per se is skills and some of the benefits you get from picking certain classes. And obviously because of that, being a Gish later on would be stupid easy, since even casting is just another skill.
Yep.
There is no advantage you have to buy into in order to be able to use magic. And as we kind of hinted at, it is showing up in multiple forms. And you have the translation referred to it as Qigong, which it technically is, but using that name might throw things off a bit. But it is. But monks essentially are using their own equivalent of Qi, even if it's not using that name specifically. You have the magic that the priests use, which my translation referred to it as spirit summoning, which is technically correct, but that naming convention could throw some people off. And then you have the different. I'm not sure if you're going to be using this in the translation, but the different subtypes of word casting known as the gates.
Yes, we actually do use the term gate.
Mm-hmm.
Because mages can specialize in one of like 8 gates, which are basically just schools of
Yeah,
elemental magic.
but you can these are the gates as I understood them, and you can tell me if any of these are getting retitled. The Earth Gate, the Fire Gate, the Metal Gate, the Moon Gate, the Outside Gate, which is kind of this universalist list, the Positive Gate, which is more akin to the Sun, the Water Gate, the Wind Gate, the Wood Gate, and the Secret Gate.
Yeah, a lot of those have been. We don't use that terminology.
Mm-hmm.
Like we use Gate of the Sun, for instance.
That would be closer to the mark for what I had as the Positive Gate, given what the description was.
Yep. And then we've got like the Gate of Metal. So some of that stuff we'll be using, some of it we won't be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can get that, and I think one of the more interesting things is each of those gates is assigned their own skill. Though I believe some of them are opposite each other, so dedicating time in one is going to make things difficult for the other.
Yep, that's right.
And in addition, you, technically speaking, can cast spells that are higher level than you have a skill in. It's just going to take more time.
That's mostly right. Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to I have it as Qigong, but what title are you going to be using for the magic that monks can use?
Oh, what did we have there? Oh, maybe it was, I can't remember if it was. There's so much terminology in this game.
Mm.
And I'm not like directly involved in the day-to-day on this one. I'm like high level oversight.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if it was invocation, numinism. I actually don't remember.
Yeah. But the point is, given who I am, I'm probably going to be picking that. Just because, I have to maintain my gimmick. So
yes,
especially since we have a monk with its own supernatural effects, which is something I will always appreciate. But when it comes to magic, when it comes to word casters, I think one of the things that is established very early on is that word casters wear masks.
Yes.
In fact, I believe the mask is their focus.
Well, yes. I mean, kind of. Masks primarily come into play when we're talking about operating Ryudes, or the mechs themselves, because you can't operate a Ryude without like a special artifact, which is known as a mask. And a mask just basically contains like the Ryude, the machine's spirit. So like a big part of becoming a Ryude pilot is having to sort of bend that spirit to the pilot's will, or else the Ryude just won't operate properly, or even it'll try to like actively shred the mind of the pilot. So yeah, that's primarily where mask comes into play, is with Ryudes and piloting the mechs.
And given that sort of approach, it sounds like the Ryude has some limited degree of sentience. It's not fully alive per se, but it has something of a will.
Yeah, so the Ryude are obviously they're cornerstones of the whole game's world. And they're built using like ancient techniques only known to like select groups or whatever. But there is they do have a spirit of sorts. They also how would I say this? They're animated via like living muscle tissue and blood,
Mm-hmm.
um, which of course makes maintenance on them a real pain in the ass. So there's a, a soft use of the term sentience here. It's very soft. Because really they're just like a combination, they're a weird combination of like magical and biological elements.
Mm-hmm. Which certainly fits. I mean, even the mechs in something like BattleTech have um, simulations of muscle fiber with how myelmer works. So
Yep.
so so they're in good company. But speaking on the mechs, as I understand it, there are three. You can put any Ryude into one of three general categories, and I'm pretty sure these aren't the terms that are going to be used in your translation. But there are guard types, which tend to be kind of squat. They usually don't have a neck, and are sometimes referred to as spear carriers or pikers. These are the mass-produced ones that aren't very strong, but they're easy to work with.
Mm.
Hunters, which tend to have more of a knight-like approach. These usually are the big yardstick in any sort of Ryude-based encounter. And warders, which are mechs that can allow a wordcaster to use magic in a mech.
Yeah. So you are right that there are three types. We don't use any of those names.
Mm-hmm.
We use footmen for like the mass-produced Ryude,
Mm-hmm.
and they're basically they've become the standard weapons of war for nations,
Mm-hmm.
of the world. I think you called them hunters, but we call them coursers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you called them warders, and we call them maledictors for
Mm-hmm.
those that are designed as like a vessel for spellcasters through
Yeah.
which they channel their powers.
Yeah, the maledictors in this case, as I understand it, usually have two masks. One as the pilot, and one as the mask for word casting.
Yes, usually.
Mm-hmm. There's also the fact that a lot of mechs especially ones that some money has been put into, will have some sort of shield mechanism for that mask, since everybody knows you take out the shield, you take out the mech.
Yep. Yeah, and I would also just add on that there are three types
Mm-hmm.
Of Ryude in the game, but in the book they're like there's over 40
Mm-hmm.
that are described.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to choose from there. I mean, there's even the book even has its own rules for like creating your own
Mm-hmm.
Ryude, but there's 40 to choose from if folks just want to like jump in quickly. And these are 40 that are already in the lore, that are kind of roaming the lands of Wearsblade already. So yeah, three categories, but a lot come in the book. So there's a good amount of variety there, diversity, and depending on your playstyle and what you want to be able to offer to your group and the adventure,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a mech for everyone in there, and then some.
Oh yeah. And I remember seeing that one of the classes was referred to as a Ryude hunter, essentially somebody on foot who can hold their own who is able to hold their own against a full-size Ryude. So given that, is it within the realm of possibility to have that kind of combined arms encounters, where you have a mixture of mech scale opponents and on foot scale opponents?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So Ryuda are super powerful, right? But even going up against one, if you're on foot and you're not in a machine yourself, it's still possible. Obviously, Ryuda are mega powerful weapons, and players who try to fight them on foot without a good plan are in they're in for a world of hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But the best defense against a Ryude is ultimately another Ryude. However, there are certainly ways that players can even the odds just with with a foot character. There's various schools of spellcasting that eventually provide access to like powerful techniques that can stop, like that can, that have enough stopping power to stop a Ryude in its tracks. But then there's also like a small arsenal of anti-Ryude tools to draw upon. Things like specialized poisons, or I think we call them paint projectiles, that'll temporarily blind a Ryude. So yeah, if you go up against one and you're on foot, it's not like immediate you're dead. Like you can handle that encounter. It's going to be pretty challenging. It's going to require strategy and intention and all that good stuff. But it's possible for sure. So there is in the game, it's not just a mech combat game. I think some people think that's what this is, and that's just simply not true. A lot of players won't ever pilot a Ryude, and in many cases they shouldn't. You shouldn't have a party completely outfitted with all Ryude pilots, frankly. So it really does lend itself well to having kind of like large scale mechs on the battlefield. You're fighting other large scale enemy mechs, but then like there's ground combat happening as well at like the human level. It creates pretty diverse battlefields and combat encounters and situations.
Yeah. In that regards, the parallel I probably use for this style of mixed combat is, oddly enough, Titanfall. Especially Titanfall 2, where in that approach you had a mixture of Titan combat and on foot combat, and a series of specialized weapons for on foot characters to take out mechs. It wasn't a case where there was some one shot, one kill thing for a mech, but more of death by 1,000 cuts.
Yep, for sure. That's it. I can't say I was expecting a Titanfall reference in tonight's conversation, but that is a great parallel to draw. Obviously some differences there, but at the same time, the core of what you're saying right now, yeah, I think Titanfall is actually a really good, it's really good imagery to depict what combat looks like in Where's Blade, or what it can look like.
Yeah. And since I do remember when I was doing my bit of research, one of the other things that came up was things like Where's Vessels, which would be, I guess, akin to magic items. And a bunch of setups to randomly generate that, as well as creating a Where's Mask. Are those things going to be in the book as well as the Ryude creation?
I believe so. I don't think those were concepts that were left for the supplements. So I think those are in the core rulebook, if memory serves. I mean, this is like a massive rulebook. But I think I'm remembering correctly that those are in there along with, rules for custom Ryude and all that. Yeah,
the vibe I've gotten is the original book was a box set. That was a combination of multiple books. Whereas the project that you're putting out is going to be one combined book, kind of like what happened with the English version of Made, where it was the core book and multiple supplements. Now, I'm not saying you're adding in supplements into this, but it's a combined version of multiple books into one.
Yeah, so it's if you give me a minute, I'll talk you through the whole origins of Where's Blade, which is probably good for listeners in here because most people don't know this game anyway. But just spoiler, you're right. So Where's Blade is basically a spinoff of a much larger Japanese media franchise, which is just called Where's 1092. Which made its debut in the mid to late 80s, spawned a shit ton of books and video games, audio dramas, model kits, even a miniatures game. It was a whole thing. What's always fascinating to me is Where's is like such an obscure thing in the West, but like the Where's franchise has had a loyal following for like 4 decades now. So next year, actually, the series is celebrating its 40th anniversary. This release, the English release of Where's Blade, is actually kind of part of that whole celebration, and the company behind Where's Blade will be announcing more as it pertains to all of that at some point in the future, but our release is a part of that. So the franchise was developed by a studio named Shindosha. So Sindosha is still around. They're the ones who we're coordinating with. Their main business, especially though it's still the case, but especially back in the 80s and 90s, was providing creative support to other companies, art, writing, planning, the like. I mean, they worked on huge properties, Gundam, Transformers, et cetera, et cetera. So like this is like a super well-established company. A lot of people don't know them because they do run kind of support on so many of these bigger projects, but they absolutely have been like a huge player in the game for, like 40 years. So in 86, Shindosha produced this like 6-part story, a novella basically, for a fiction magazine called Shishio, which featured a wandering mech riding warrior battling his way through like a fantasy world. There was a good response to this story that they wrote, and I guess the team, just determined at some point, they're like, hey, I think this concept has legs, like we should do something with this. So they did. They took like that 6-part short story, and the company decided to expand it into like a full-fledged novel, and gave the job of writing that book to one of its senior employees, a guy by the name of Satoshi Chiba. So here's where the RPG comes in. At the time, Chiba and a number of his colleagues and coworkers were playing regular sessions of D&D after work. So again, this is like 86 through 89. This short story had already been written. They're playing D&D. It didn't take long for someone at the table to float the idea of like, hey, maybe we should turn this mech fantasy concept short story thing into one of these things that we're playing right now, tabletop RPG. The idea eventually solidified into a formal project with 2 of Chiba's D&D group, a dude by the name of Masatoshi Kasukabe, who was a fellow Shindosha employee, and then the group's DM, Tomiyuki Matsumoto. They led the charge on the RPG. What's interesting is they were writing the full-fledged, so Chiba, who had been pinned to write the actual full-fledged novel, was writing the book at the same time that they were developing the RPG. The 2 teams were like so worried about like narrative clashes and lore clashes that at some point, I guess they were trying to develop them in tandem, kind of in the same world, taking place at the same time in the same timeline, and then just decided like, no way, we're gonna fuck this up somewhere. And so they determined, we're gonna take the RPG. It's gonna be a prequel, and we're gonna set it 250 years before the events of the novel in progress. At that point, the novel that was still being written. So the end result is Were's Blade. And you are right. The first release of Were's Blade was a box set that was released in the summer of '89. It was released a little less than a year after Chiba's full-fledged book came out. That first full-fledged book was the first book in the Were's 1092 series. They're still making books in that series, so talk about legs. The game itself, so they released the box set. It kind of like took people by surprise. It sold very well. So they produced a bunch of supplements for it, adventure, scenario books, setting books, and then we get to our release. They released a revised rulebook titled Were's Blade: The Renewal, which was released in 1994. Now, the Renewal was basically like a definitive edition of everything that came before it. So it included all of the rules clarities, errata, et cetera, et cetera. So it really was the definitive edition of Were's Blade. Unfortunately, this sucks because like it's the best version of the book, as you can imagine. But unfortunately, in 1994, like the Japanese RPG market was not doing well. So
that would be around the time that TCGs started eating everybody's lunch.
That's it. That was it, man. And so like RPGs started going down, and the intent with the Were's Blade Renewal book, the one released in 1994, the one that we are bringing to the West, it was going to be like the jumping off point for a whole nother run at this. And it just didn't happen because not enough people showed up to buy it because not enough people were playing RPGs at the time. So like the line was canceled. Hobby Japan then briefly revived it. We touched on this before. They like briefly tried to revive Were's Blade in 2008 as like a D20 edition that required D&D 3rd edition, the D&D 3rd edition player's handbook to play.
You said this was 2008?
Yeah, 2008, yeah.
I'd say it was behind the ball, but the thing I've learned is that D&D has notoriously had this stop and start support over the course of decades, where they'll support for a few years, then they'll be gone for 5 more years, then they'll support for 3 years, and then be gone for a few more, which is one of the other many reasons I think D&D's never been able to establish a foothold is consistency. You know, it's kind of like when a TV show keeps changing the time slot that it's on. Looking at you, Firefly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's a big part of why D&D has never been able to establish itself in Japan, especially, as well as other non-English markets. But I digress. So yeah, so they released the D20 version basically like 13, 14 years after the last Were's Blade book came out. So like, it was just a bad idea, frankly. And not like D&D 3rd edition wasn't popular in Japan at the time either.
It wasn't popular, and over here, 2008, that's when 4th edition came out. So it was way behind the ball.
Well behind,
and didn't read the damn room.
Yeah, and so then that was it. That was the end of Were's Blade. And we never got another RPG book after that until now. So I'm glad that we're kind of playing a part in helping revive this thing. Obviously, Shindosha, they have a ton of plans for Were's Blade. And this is their baby. We're playing a small part in this, but it's cool to play a small part in it nevertheless.
Now, when it comes to the setting, obviously it takes place on the continent of Ahan, which is divided into the east, the central area, which was translated as Nakahara, and the west, with the core book implying that it was mostly focused on the west. Is that going to be the case here, or are the other parts of the other regions of Ahan going to get focus as well?
No, this is mostly just Western Ahan. So what's interesting is other parts of Ahan have been explored in non-RPG products, but never in the actual RPG product line.
Yeah.
So we are locked into Western Ahan for right now.
Which, in all fairness, that's still a large amount of ground to cover.
Oh yeah, for sure. Plenty.
And
that sandbox is plenty big.
And you have different regions within the West. You have different religious sects. You have the varying different peoples, as well as it being divided into the northern countries, the central western and the southern western regions. So there's a lot to work with, and you kind of hinted at this earlier when we were talking about monks and priests, but your choice of sect is very crucial to playing those characters.
Absolutely.
Some of them don't even have monks, and each of them has certain oaths and certain doctrines that you're expected to follow.
Yep.
As well as some bonuses if need be. But I think what I find interesting when it came to combat is stat-wise, there's not a whole lot of moving parts. This is one game where I could see a one-page sheet. Just because.
Yes and no. I'm just thinking about. Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by a one-page sheet.
Well, I think where I'm getting at is the fact that what was referred to as battle number and defense number are the primary stats that are going to get used in combat.
Oh, right, yep.
As well as initiative number, and when
there's some other things, but yeah.
The point is that this isn't a case of say Rollmaster, where you've got a bunch of stuff and a bunch of charts for criticals.
Definitely not.
Dear Lord, all those charts. I hope you never had to try and run Rollmaster ever. Especially
no.
I did a legit spit take when I learned that Middle-earth role-playing was supposed to be a simplified version of Rollmaster. It technically is.
Is there such a thing?
But it's kind of like it technically hurts less to get punched in the balls than kicked in the balls.
Yeah, there you go.
Um,
Yeah, that's right.
you know, it's kind of redundant when you're going to be on the floor anyways. But uh, there was one thing when it came to character creation that wasn't present in what I was able to find that kept driving me crazy that it wasn't put in there, and that was I'm guessing when it comes to determining health and MP, the translation called it physical and mental durability, but that's some of the words that were used for the translations would throw people off. That's a certain pattern, but could you tell me how essentially how HP and MP would be generated from the core stats?
I would have to get in there, and because I wasn't like in the weeds on this one, I was really running like large scale oversight, making sure we were hitting timelines and deadlines.
Yeah.
I'm probably not the best guy to talk about, moment to moment gameplay of how each thing is determined. So I would have to like pull up my book and go through it yet again.
Yeah.
To be able to answer that question well, and in a way that was, completely accurate.
Yeah. So that's something I'll shelve for later. But I remember when you were in the lead up to Tokyo Conception, you did a 2-part actual play to showcase the game that had a few pre-gens and all of that stuff. Are you planning on doing something similar with Where's Blade?
We are, yeah. Actually, I just uploaded the video tonight with I set the premiere to go live at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, August 26th, which is when our Kickstarter launches. We've got I want to say it's 5 hours. We got a 5-hour actual play session. It's a big game. I think there's 6 folks in total, and is like the community team could not have nailed the actual play any better. It's such a good representation of what this game plays like, what it feels like, and quite frankly, how long a session takes. This is probably our longest. This is the game that's going to keep you at the table the longest that we've ever put out. So we only have one actual play coming right now, and that is that 5-hour one that we're launching with the Kickstarter. However, just like we've been doing monthly for SMT, once we get closer to the game's like official launch and we're fulfilling rewards for the Kickstarter and the game's going to retail, we will be revisiting community nights where we'll be running kind of a long form Where's Blade actual play campaign. So that being said, if you jump in on Tuesday to our YouTube, or you just visit the campaign page, you'll be able to watch that actual play there, and it's excellent. Now, I will say that watch it knowing that some spoilers are going to be sprinkled throughout, because the scenario that they're running is one of the scenarios that that comes with the book that backers will get access to specifically. So like, watch or beware, kind of one of those things, but it really is an awesome 5 hours. So once they were done with it, and I asked them when they were play testing early on each time, but certainly with the actual play, because I knew this was the one we were putting on the Kickstarter, I just said like, hey, how was it? Did you have fun? And this was one of the rare times when everyone in the play group was like, oh, dude, that was such a good session. So I'm happy that people are going to get to see that good of a session. I don't necessarily think it was like I don't think it was like happenstance that it was a great session. I just think that Where's Blade's a really cool game, and I think that's probably why it went so well. Of course, I'm going to sound like I'm like, I'm flipping into marketing mode, and I am a little bit, but at the same time, like, we chose this game for a reason. We didn't choose it because it was bad. So there's a lot of retro RPGs we could have chosen. A lot of designers that we talked to for the Legends of Japan line. I talked about how we've already got our second one going, but we have several other conversations happening with several other designers any of those games could have been number one. We chose to lead with this one for a reason. It wasn't by chance, you know, it wasn't by accident. It's just it's a good game, and people, I think the actual play really illustrates why that is.
Hmm. Now, given that you mentioned that this is going to be a big book, what are you shooting for as far as the page count?
That is a good question. I think we're gonna be going through my files here. I think we're probably gonna be north of 300. Now this will be our largest sized book.
Hmm.
So we've always done either A5 size, which is 5 by 8, or we've done a B5 size, which is 7 by 10. This one will be a standard US size of 8.5 by 11.
Hmm.
So kind of traditional hardcover size here, and it still is coming in at I want to say it's north of 300 pages. I actually want to say it's north of 350, but I actually can't find the page count right now to confirm that, so I don't want to commit to that and then be wrong. So yeah, definitely our biggest game, form factor wise, biggest game, page count wise.
Hmm. And I know you mentioned that obviously the Kickstarter is going to be going live in 2 days from the time of this recording, but are you shooting for, when it comes to the release window, are we shooting for spring 2026?
Yes, we are late spring 2026. I think I've got it down as May 2026.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely see that, and I hope that through this, some of the novels and just more of the world of Where's Blade comes stateside in one form or another.
You know, man, that's the hope. Like, I didn't choose Where's Blade just because I liked the book. I chose Where's Blade because I liked the book and I liked everything else around it, quite frankly. It's just a good multimedia franchise, and somehow has never left Japan, which I think is wild. And for me, I was just talking about this in the Discord to someone, is I would love for this Kickstarter to do well enough for us to go to Shindosha and say, hey, let's do those novels now. And hey, let's do more supplements, or hey, let's create new content. Like let's get the band back together. And we wouldn't be able to get everyone back together because the original designer is passed away. But you know, his son is the one who is primarily coordinating all of this. You know, working for Shindosha. So I think there could be the possibility of producing new content, but even that aside, like there's still more content out there in the Where's Blade RPG space for us to do more with if this thing proves to be successful. I think it will be successful most of the time, and I say that because most of our Kickstarters, we typically sit around 800 to 1,200 pre-launch signups, and right now we're sitting at about 5,100. So we're about 5 times the size of what we typically are for a launch. We've never hit a pre-sign up launch that big. No, I mean, not even come close to it. So my hope is that translates to people checking out the page, liking what they see. We are going to be releasing like a 50-page like preview version of the book to give folks a good understanding of what this thing is about, what the system is, how it's run, all that good stuff. There's probably enough there to also run your own game. So my hope is that people check out the Kickstarter, like what they see, support it, and then by the end, hopefully we've done well enough for me to say, okay, you know what? It makes economic sense to do more in this world. Let's do some of those novels because the novels are very popular for a reason.
And I will definitely be looking forward to it. But with that said, I do want to sincerely thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my monastery and enjoy the madness that happens around here. And
hey man, I'm just glad that you think of me so often. You bring me on the show and let me ramble about some of these games.
And anytime you see fit to return, the door is always open. As I often say around here, drinking is not mandatory, but it is encouraged. And, of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there will be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra, I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody!
我所